Okay, welcome back everybody. I hope you and your families are doing well. And as you probably know, you're watching this video because Blackboard Collaborate and Blackboard are currently offline. So the show must go on. We're going to move forward here. I'm going to first start off by saying that this presentation that I'm showing you will be accessible through Google Classroom. I'm actually going to go back a slide and kind of start from the beginning. In the event that we do meet again, there are some expectations when we are online. So I'm going to go back a slide. And this is where we would have started today's session. Do make sure that you complete the Blackboard Collaborate Expectations Google form. I sent that out on Tuesday. Along with completing the Formula One car pretest, which we'll talk about shortly here. I want you to know that Google Classroom is our one-stop shop for information all quarter. No matter if Blackboard is or isn't working, we still have Google Classroom to find content. Now, our Blackboard Collaborate link will only be accessible through Blackboard. So as I mentioned earlier, this is our plan B. I will continue to record lessons if for some reason we are unable to meet through Blackboard, and I will continue to upload them to my YouTube channel. Keep in mind that in our Google Classroom class, I have a folder called Distance Learning. It's the first folder at the top, and I will be breaking down my lessons and all the resources you need by week. So currently there is a folder called Google Classroom Distance Learning Week 1. Let me go ahead and showcase that for you. This is our course. This is my first period class as my example. You'll see I've posted quite a few announcements which I hope you have been reading and following through. But under classwork we have a distance learning folder, and as you can see here we have week 1 now posted, and everything I'm going to be covering today is listed in the order I want things completed, and here are all the resources. There's quite a few for this first week. It's pretty simple and self-explanatory, but know that this is where we're finding content and information throughout the quarter. So let me go ahead and jump back to my presentation here. These norms or expectations are all covered in the Google form. We'll obviously address these when we are eventually back online. So let me go ahead and move on. Every presentation I post will start with the week and the date, so do make sure you're looking at the correct week. And here's today's agenda. Blackboard Selfenroll, Blackboard Collaborate Expectations, and Office Hours. We're going to start with that. We're then going to get into LED light stand project, third quarter grades, and fourth quarter projects. Third item is after school opportunities for next school year, and that's going to include the LED light stand and the Formula One car. And last but not least, our fourth agenda item, which is really why I want to make sure that we are meeting today, is I want to prepare you for the beginning of our Formula One car project. Keep in mind, all the material, both for today and the remainder of the quarter, is in Google Classroom Distance Learning folder. In this order, I would like things to be completed. Keep in mind you should have completed the Blackboard Collaborate Expectations form. That form is also located in week 1. But I then want you to continue by completing the Formula One car pretest. This needs to be done with a calculator. This is not graded. Then I want you to complete our Science of Speed WebQuest. If you're an A-Day student, that should be done by April 22nd. If you're a B-Day student, that should be done by Friday, April 24th. The third item is to research Formula One car designs using a link I provided to the Pittsco showroom. This link will show you 106 Formula One cars, very much like the ones we're going to be designing. And last but not least, I want you to review our Formula One design brief. I'm going to give this out in chunks so you don't have to know everything from start to finish, but that is actually embedded in this presentation, and it starts on slide 8 is where you'll find the Formula One car design brief. So let's start with item number 1. Blackboard self-enroll. Obviously, today is not a good day to do this if you have yet to self-enroll. But when Blackboard does go online, please read my Google Classroom announcement on how to self-enroll, and it's quite simple. This is the platform I use to communicate to your parent and or guardian. This is how I do it. So I want them to see and hear everything I'm telling you, and this is where they can find information. They do not have access to Google Classroom unless you log them into your account, but they can view any content I share on Blackboard. So if you have yet to self-enroll, please do that when Blackboard is online. Number two, our Blackboard Collaborate expectations. This is a Google form I sent out on Tuesday. You need to read through my 9 rules and simply accept this agreement, which, short and sweet, are simple, common sense rules to be used when we meet online. And the third piece here are my office hours. Every Tuesday and every Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m. You can contact me either via email or you can connect through Blackboard. There will be a Blackboard Ultra link, which is Blackboard Collaborate. I will be online between 9 and 10 a.m. every Tuesday and Thursday for you to connect with me and ask questions if you have them. Once again, either email me or join my session, which I will be hosting during this time. Second item, big question, LED light stands. As it reads, all students are going to have an opportunity next school year to finish this project. The reality is we're not going back to school this school year, and we will have to pick up where we left off the coming year. After school opportunities will be posted in Google Classroom. Here's something to consider. If you're a 7th grader this year, it's simple. You will be returning back to Carson as an 8th grader. You will be hearing from me through Google Classroom dates that I will allow students to come in after school to complete and take home this project. But if you are an 8th grader this year, next year you will be in high school. I will continue to communicate to you through our Google Classroom what days you can come in and complete your project and take it home. Keep in mind, next year you're a 9th grader, next year you would have to find transportation to get to Carson to complete this project. More information to come on this. Third quarter grades, if you can access SIS, what you see is what you get for third quarter. So I believe out of 190 students, I may only have 10 students that have yet to complete assessments and or simply have not turned in work. You know who you are. Please take responsibility to check SIS. Most students will find the grade that they see is the grade they want. You're fine, that's your third quarter grade. But a few of you have yet to reach out to me. I believe I posted this last week in Google Classroom. There's my email address. We need to talk if you are missing any work. Grades are going to be finalized by April 24th for third quarter. Fourth quarter timeline. I communicated this to your parent and guardian through Blackboard earlier this week. We're going to continue moving forward as if we were in the classroom, but we're going to focus solely on design and simulation. We're going to start with our Formula One car, and then we're going to end the quarter with our Pringle chip rocket. We're going to focus solely on design of your Formula One car. That's going to be both on paper and 3D modeling. And the Pringle chip rocket will be both design and simulation using a free web-based rocket simulation program. More to come on that. Third item. So knowing that the likelihood of us returning is slim to none this school year, we are looking at next year. And here's what Mr. Eggers and I have come up with. We're going to provide, when after-school buses and clubs begin, opportunities for students to come in and complete their LED light stand projects. And if you participate, complete, and design a Formula One car this quarter, I'm going to give you an opportunity to come in and construct that car and even race it next school year. Remember, if you're currently an 8th grader, next year you're in 9th grade, you will have to wait for me to communicate to you those after school dates. I will tell you right now, it'll more than likely be a Google form where students will fill out the form and a slot that they would like to come in and work. Keep in mind, you will need to find transportation to Carson if you are a high school student next year to come in and work. As I just mentioned, I will continue to talk to you via Google Classroom, so please do not unenroll in the class, please. Please continue to stay enrolled in Google Classroom. Fourth item, Formula One car project. So this is where we're going to now move into a few activities I'd like you to complete by the next class. We're going to focus over the next few weeks solely on design of a Formula One car. All project resources, as I've mentioned earlier, are going to be in Google Classroom in our distance learning folder, and you will see a folder called Week 1 with quite a bit of content. Please complete them in this order. First, finish the Formula One car pretest. Once again, not graded, but you will need a calculator to complete a few problems. Second, complete the Science of Speed WebQuest. There are quite a few PDFs that go with this activity. This is a Google form, and you will be shown in a moment how to complete that. Third, research Formula One car designs using the link I provided called Shop Pisco F1 Dragsters. This is a link to the Science of Speed WebQuest site with 106 cars for you to look over to get an understanding of what this car actually looks like. And last but not least, there are slides following this slide as I'm showing you right now with the beginning of our Formula One car design brief. So let me go ahead and just kind of start from the end here. This once again is the following slide in this presentation. I want you to read this content, and I'm just going to scroll through it. There's quite a bit of information here. Some of it you may have seen if you made a dragster in 7th grade or in level 1. But once again, there's also some new content. So I want you to go through these slides. I'm just zipping through them. And this last slide is something just to be thinking about for our next meeting. When we do meet next class, we're going to be discussing the sketch of 2 possible Formula One car designs. I will eventually post a thumbnail sketch worksheet, which you can download and print from the house. If you do not have a printer, you can complete next week's activity on notebook paper, but you will need to make sure you have a pencil and an eraser in order to sketch these designs. Coming down the road, this is probably not for another few weeks, I do want you to look around the house and see if you have a metric ruler. If you don't have a ruler, then you can actually print a paper metric ruler by selecting this link here, and I will include this link on my Google Classroom page. I'll click on it right now for you to see what this looks like, but this is a printable ruler. All you have to do is download this PDF and print it, and you are set. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the content that's in Google Classroom. So I'm going to go back a few slides, and let's go ahead and pick up with the slide right here. So first finish the pretest, then start the Science of Speed WebQuest. So once again, let me go back to our class, distance learning. This was actually sent out earlier this week. You should have completed the Blackboard expectations form. It's located below the Formula One car pretest. So here's the form. These are my expectations for Blackboard Collaborate. Please complete it and agree to those rules. Here's the pretest. Once again, this is not graded, but you will need a calculator to crunch a few numbers. And here's the WebQuest. So I'm going to click on this form. You're completing this using short answer responses. The instructions read, use the following PDF documents to find answers to these questions. I've included 3 PDFs. One's called The Science of Going Fast, the Math of Going Fast, and a glossary PDF. These are the documents you use to find the answers to questions 1 through 14. Use Science of Going Fast. For Math of Going Fast, you will find the answers to questions 15 through 23, and the glossary will have the answer to question number 24. Make sure when you complete this form, you turn it in, and once you have turned it in, you're now going to go to the next item of resources. There is a link called Shop Pittsco F1 Dragsters. You're going to look at 106 Formula One cars. So let me go ahead and close this form. And here is the link I've discussed earlier. So what you're looking at here are 106 cars, very much like the ones we would have constructed this quarter, all made out of balsa wood, that were in a national competition a few years ago. We actually competed with a group of TSA students, and actually this is one of our cars. I'll go ahead and click on it. This car right here was designed by a group of 8th graders at Rachel Carson. We came in 6th place overall. And there's also another car that I believe we came in 9th place. The cars are broken down by high school and middle school. If it's a D car, that's a high school Formula One car. If it's an E car, that's a middle school Formula One car. Let me go and open up this high school F1 car. I actually got to meet these students from Florida, great group of kids. This was the fastest Formula One car at this national competition that year. These cars are, as ours would have been, they're all balsa wood. Obviously have been painted, all 4 wheels are the same size and diameter. It's broken up really into just a few parts. Keep in mind, these parts have been glued onto a car body. I'll be showing you that in another video. Front airfoil, side pod, rear airfoil, spoiler, all connected to a car body. I want you to pay close attention to the shape of these airfoils. That's a little bit more of a convex design here. A little bit more of a convex design here. Let me go ahead and show you a middle school car. This car came in 1st place for the middle school division. Opposite of convex, this is a concave front airfoil. This is a side pod, another rear airfoil, and there's a spoiler. Once again, all connected to a car body. Keep in mind that you will have an opportunity, if you decide to come in next year, to take something you've designed this quarter and build it, paint it, and race it. That's my hope, that students will take advantage of that. So their next task is to simply look. I want you to look through all these pages. Keep in mind there's a view more option. Keep in mind there's 106 cars. You can view all, which is probably one of the easier things to do. And you can look at quite a few unique, different designs just to start getting those creative juices flowing. There is probably going to be some questions as to the specifics with this project. We're going to get to those. I'm always an email away, but you can, at least for now, just look at what's available. And also think a little bit about your CO2 dragster that you made in level 1 when you think about what makes a car fast. That information is also going to be found in my Formula One car design brief. So this is your research in preparation for next week. And last but not least, the last item is the Formula One car design brief. Keep in mind that I have taken the presentation that I was just showing you here, I've converted it into a PDF, and it's now available in Google Classroom. So you will go through the slides, and starting on slide number 8. Slide number 8 is the beginning of our design brief. And within this design brief, you're going to get some background, the problem, the materials we would use, a little bit about CO2 cartridges, the track, which some of you, actually all of you, have experience with, and also what makes a car fast. I want you to become very familiar with this information. Also, a quick little plug here. I've included a few really cool videos that I would recommend you take a look at if you have an opportunity to get a sense of what F1 looks like today. This is the ultimate guide to the new season. This is Formula One 2020. Please take a look at this. There's a lot of great information and content out there to better prepare you for this activity. So I'm going to go ahead at this point. I'm going to leave off here, and I want you to keep in mind that we're going to, the days we cannot meet because of technical issues, we're going to continue using this medium of YouTube and Google Classroom, which seems to be rock solid Google Classroom for us. So I'm always an email away if you have any questions. I might be including a second part to this video when I turn my camera on here to show you some Formula One cars that were made from students in the past, just once again to get you familiar with this project. So I'm going to sign off. Hope you all are well, and I'll communicate with you next time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of a preview of this activity in terms of what it looks like as a final product. So many of us are familiar with this block of wood. This was our CO2 dragster project that was completed in level 1. Once again, piece of balsa wood, wedge style car, and I'm going to have you now take a look at what a Formula One car comes out of. Big difference. This block does not have a CO2 cartridge hole drilled just yet. This is something the student would do. It does have this groove on the bottom, which actually allows us to put the eye hooks on race day inside the groove, which actually keeps the eye hooks higher, which in turn brings the car down so it's closer to the track to reduce the amount of air moving under the vehicle. So once again, big difference in size. Now, some kids might say, well, gosh, I guess Formula One cars are lighter than CO2 dragster wedge cars. Not necessarily. It's really about what you do with the material that makes a car lighter and faster. Obviously, that's all about design. So that's what's going to be our focus over the next few weeks. And luckily, many of you, all of you have experience making a CO2 car. Let me go ahead and show you a completed product. This is a car actually that I used as a demonstration last semester. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here so you all can kind of see it. And just work with me here. I'm using a different setup than I have in my classroom. So I have to do a lot of things manually to focus and to zoom. I think you got a pretty good sense of what I have here. And I kind of went all out with this. I took this to how can I make my car lighter? And you can see I reduced mass by cutting out the inside of the car body. I came up with more of a concave front airfoil, a little bit of a convex shape on the bottom. My side pods, as you can see here, also kind of slope, curve in. And then here in the back, my rear airfoil is also kind of a convex design. Something students have been doing over the last few years, which is really neat and cool to see, is they've really taken the time to focus on this part. This is the CO2 cartridge housing, and like your CO2 car, I tend to find students take an opportunity to really think about where can I reduce mass. This typically is one of the heavier parts of a car, and some students simply just don't think about it. They just don't realize that if they want this car to be lighter, then this is going to be an area where you can reduce some of that mass. Doesn't have to be done. That's the beauty of things we do in my class. It's open for creativity. I'm simply suggesting ways to make this car lighter. So this is an area to focus on, the CO2 cartridge housing. You don't have to remove material from the car body like I did, but I start to see this more and more. And I actually learned that probably more from a student than really coming up with it on my own. And then we have the shape of these parts. Now, these parts all have a purpose. Aesthetically, yeah, they look really neat and cool, but what is really the purpose? So let me kind of break that down. When your car is going down the track, we have wheels. And on a CO2 car, these wheels would stick out. Well, on a Formula One car, they're not. They're actually covered. They're inside these what we call wheel wells. So you have a front airfoil and you have a side pod. So let's start from the front. As your car is going down the track, the air is actually pushing against, but being redirected and moving over these wheels. So what we're really doing with these parts is we're redirecting airflow. This is reducing the amount of fluid friction or drag with the wheels simply just sticking out of your car like on a CO2 car. So we're actually pushing the air up and over, and as it hits the side pod, it actually continues to keep moving and then rolls off the back of your car. So that's why we incorporate these parts. On a real Formula One car, these parts have a second purpose. They'll actually create a downward force. So the force will actually push the car closer to the track, which in turn increases the control and traction of the vehicle. Keeping in mind that these cars are moving at speeds over 200 miles an hour, where these cars tend to slow down is around turns. So how do you keep a car, how do you give the driver control of a car when taking a sharp turn and reduce the amount of times you have to hit that brake pedal because you're slowing your car down when you hit the brakes. So they have to create this downward force to give these cars better traction, which in turn allows the driver to take turns at high speeds and still have control of the vehicle at the same time. Formula One races are probably won and lost through turns, because what do people typically do when they come to a turn? Even in a normal car, they hit the brakes, they want to slow down. So by creating that downward force, you're pushing the car closer to the track, you're pushing it downward, and in turn you're giving the car better traction. The wheels are really hugging the track. These drivers can now go at higher speeds around turns and not risk having to slow down and have their competitor pass them. So this is an example of a final product. Here's another one. Once again, there's room for creativity here. As I mentioned, kids aren't necessarily being told to extract material from inside the car body. Of course not. And it's more work when you do that. So keep that in mind too. But what you can see here is a different approach to the front airfoil, a different approach to the side pod, a different approach to the rear airfoil. What many kids once again are doing is you can see the CO2 cartridge housing here. We're reducing as much material around that CO2 cartridge hole as we feasibly can. If you look on the bottom, and this is something that may be hard to see, but this is actually the location of our eye hooks on race day. This car is a little bit harder to probably understand that, so let me bring in a car that I also used during another demonstration. These little holes you see here is where I push those eye hooks in on race day. And our eye hooks are actually going to sit a little bit higher up in the car body, which actually means the car is going to sit a little bit lower to the track, which in turn means less air is moving under the car. Here's another vehicle. And this student actually created these airfoils that are longer than the car body, as you can see here. Also included something called a spoiler. And you're hearing me talk more about this next time we meet. This, for our car, since we're not exceeding speeds of probably more than 40 miles an hour, this at the end of the day, folks, is probably more just for aesthetics, for show, than really for performance. So it's an optional part, as you'll see as we get into designing next week. But a car should have a front airfoil, a side pod, a rear airfoil, a car body. The spoiler is an optional piece. So I'll leave you with this. This is pretty much kind of the pieces and parts. When we are making this car, we obviously start with a block of wood that looks like this. You end up making a series of parts. Let me go ahead and zoom out a little bit. Here we go. And what you're seeing here are the pieces that make the whole. Out of one single block of balsa wood, we're going to cut a rear airfoil, a front airfoil, a side pod, and a car body. It all comes out of the same block. These parts will eventually be filed, sanded to size, and we'll make two of them by actually cutting them right down the middle on a bandsaw. So we actually make one airfoil, shape it, and once it's done, we cut it right in half. And by cutting it right down the center, right down the center, and right down the center, we then get two airfoils, two side pods. Those parts are then attached onto the car body. This is probably a better idea of what this actually, how this actually gets assembled. You can clearly see where the parts have been cut in half and then glued onto this car body. These are glued on with white glue and pins, and this is a process. It's actually a pretty simple process, but this is a process that's done once all the parts have been cut, filed, sanded, and shaped properly. And then really following this, we put a base coat on. We then take them home and spray paint them, bring them back, we assemble them, and we race them. So anyway, I want to give you a little preview as to how this project would eventually be constructed. I'm hoping kids are going to take advantage of this next year. I really do. I want this work to have meaning for you. So let's be positive and let's kind of make this our final product. Let's try to get kids in here next year to do this. So I'm going to stop this video now. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and I will see you next.